From LPM,
Louisville Public Media.
In honor of Military Appreciation Month, Verizon thought of a lot of different ways we could show our appreciation, like rolling out the red carpet, giving you your own personal marching band, or throwing a bumping shindig. At Verizon, we're doing all that in the form of special military offers. That's why, this month only, we're giving military and veteran families a $200 Verizon gift card and a phone on us with a select trade-in and a new line on select unlimited plans. Think of it as our way of flying a squadron of jets overhead while launching fireworks. Now that's what we call a celebration, because we're proud to serve you. Visit your local Verizon store to learn more. $200 Verizon gift card requires smartphone purchase $799.99 or more with new line on eligible plan. Gift card sent within 8 weeks after receipt of claim. Phone offer requires $799.99 purchase with new smartphone line on Unlimited Ultimate or Postpaid Unlimited Plus. Minimum plan $80 a month with autopay plus taxes and fees for 36 months. Less $800 trade-in or promo credit applied over 36 months. 0% APR. Trade-in must be from Apple, Google, or Samsung. Trade-in and additional terms apply.
Welcome to It Takes Energy, presented by Energy Transfer, where we talk all things oil and natural gas. Oil and gas drive our economy, ensure our country's security, and open pathways to brighter futures. The U.S. produces 13 million barrels of crude oil every day, enough to fill 800 Olympic swimming pools. But what is that oil used for? The gas we put in our cars is just the beginning. Nearly 50% of each barrel is refined into gasoline. Another 34% is refined into fuels like diesel and jet fuel, and the rest is used to make more than 96% of our everyday essentials, like the tennis shoes you wear, the cell phone you rely on, and medicines that help save lives. Look around, and you'll see the essential role oil and gas plays in our modern lives. Our world needs oil and gas, and people rely on us to deliver it. To learn more, visit ittakes.energy.com.
Welcome to On Track. I'm Aisha Jaffer. Louisville Public Media is celebrating 75 years of service to our community. As part of that celebration, we're sharing the stories of 75 people who've helped shape Louisville in a project called 75 and Change. Today, On Track sits down with one of those changemakers, Kathleen Driskell, for a conversation about the power of poetry, the role of a poet laureate, and what it means to represent Kentucky's literary voice. Kathleen Driskell was recently named the 2025-2026 Kentucky Poet Laureate by Governor Andy Beshear. She's an award-winning poet, essayist, and educator, and she's the author of 6 poetry collections, including Goat-Footed Gods, Next Door to the Dead, which won the Judy Gaines Young Book Award, and Seeds Across Snow, a Poetry Foundation national bestseller. Her work has appeared in some of the country's most respected literary outlets, including The New Yorker, The Southern Review, and Shenandoah, and she currently serves as a professor of creative writing and the chair of the Naslin Mann Graduate School of Writing at Spalding University in Louisville. Kathleen, thanks for being here on Track.
Oh, I'm thrilled to be asked. Thank you for having me.
So when did you first realize that poetry had a hold on you?
I don't know that I realized it for a while. Maybe I was a young adult, but when I was in the 3rd grade, I was asked by my teacher to write a poem, and it's the only poem that I know of my own by heart. And it was, War is bad. It makes me sad. When my uncle gets home from Vietnam, I will be glad. And that poem she asked me to read on the morning announcements. And, you get encouragement from a teacher. So that made me realize that writing could be a good thing, a positive thing in my life. And it also made me have connection to my teachers and think about teaching, too. So those two things came together very young.
At
a very young age for me.
And very clear, because it's still in your heart. You can still remember it. That's incredible.
Well, it's short,
I can't remember anything, So now you grew up as a working class kid in the farmlands and tobacco fields of Oldham County before, as you have said, Oldham County became cool.
That's right. One high school when I was there.
So how has that upbringing influenced your work?
I think that it really connected me to my community. It connected me to other working class kids and folks out there. It was really before it was cool. We actually had one high school, Oldham County High School, and I was around nature out there in a way that I might not have been if I'd grown up in the city. Although it doesn't mean you can't access nature in the city, but I think the things that there were for us to do were to be outside, and to hike and walk and, look at gardens and be out in the woods and all that. So
is that kind of like what mostly inspires your work? It's like it's your personal experience and kind of the environment and the world around you?
I think so. When I was a kid, my folks were from Appalachia, and they migrated to the city to be factory workers and to get out of the mines, frankly. And so some of my folks in Appalachia would come. My grandmother had lots of sisters, and so they would come and visit us, and we would sit around the kitchen table and have pie and cake, and coffee after the dinner was done. And so I remember being pretty small and being under the table, and pretty much I grew up with a family of storytellers. And so pretty much I would listen and hope that they would know I was underneath, because some of the stories were not appropriate for children, but those are the stories that I wanted to know about the most. Course. And they'd say, go get the box. And so the box was just this ratty old cardboard box full of photographs, and they would kind of sift around the table and pull one out. So you pull out the image, and then the story would come. And I've thought later, thinking back about that experience, that that's sort of what happens to me. I'll see something that's memorable. It catches within me for some reason. Who knows the reason? And then the story comes, and sometimes the story is directly attached to that image or that landscape, and sometimes it's kind of made up. So...
Have you done that yourself now, like years later, a generation later, like pulled photos out of a box and...
those days are gone. I pull out my phone, right?
Yeah. Oh, that's true, yes.
And inevitably I can't find the photograph I'm after. So, I've got years and years of photographs. But yeah, I do think about it. And I often take photographs of things that are interesting to me to come back and visit and write from that source, whatever that means.
That's beautiful. I really love that. I love that visual, just sitting around the kitchen table and you underneath there,
yes,
catching those stories. That I can see that. I can see that very clearly.
Yeah.
So it sounds like your experience, your life experience, is part of your work. And I mean, Kentucky is part of that. So when you think about Kentucky in your writing, is it just your personal experience, or are you looking at landscapes, it's contradictions, it's people that all kind of come into it?
Oh, all of that. In the new book, Goat-Footed Gods, that's here, there are poems about the Louisville busing riots. Because I was a teenager then, and I remember it was a terribly violent thing to see on TV. I mean, I was not down, on Dixie Highway or, the places where the riots were taking place, but we would see it on local TV, and people were really angry, and it made me, for the first time, feel, frightened of my community, because it was just so out of the ordinary for what you might see. Now, I'm not saying that other people didn't have those frightening experiences all the time. I was a white, privileged kid in a lot of ways, but for me, that was a real eye-opener. So I've written about that quite a bit. I grew up in Pewee Valley, next to the Confederate cemetery there. There's a little section in the Pewee Valley Cemetery. It was very close to my home, and I would ride my bike over there. It was beautiful, still is beautiful, and I would sit on this tombstone and read, books and things to sort of get out of a turbulent home situation there. But from the Louisville busing riots, to my shame, my parents were part of the white flight out to Oldham County. That's why we went to Oldham County to be there. And it didn't dawn on me until years later. It's kind of embarrassing. But we moved into a little subdivision that was called Confederate Estates. So nobody was trying to hide anything too hard. And it gave me lots to think about. I thought, I don't want to be like this, what I am seeing. This doesn't fit. Something is wrong here. And so, I think that really helped me sort of pay attention to the world in a different way. And that's what poets do. That's what all writers do. I guess that's what all artists do. You pay attention to the world. You give your attention to the world.
And I see that in your writing. I really do, especially in the world around you, because you've moved into this pre-Civil War home. And
Mm-hmm.
you just talking about reading in a cemetery. You have a cemetery plot next to you.
It was a few years ago that I realized that most of the safest places I've felt have been in cemeteries, because I've happened to live near them or visit them or, hang out and read in one. And now one's right next door to us. My husband and I, when we came back to grad school, I got a job at Spalding, and we came back from grad school, and we thought we were rich because we had sold a house, and we got here, we're like, we're so poor. But we stumbled upon this old country church that was for sale, and my husband's in the construction business, and we started looking at it, and we just wanted to save it, because it's a beautiful old post and beam building and it's got pegs. Like I can walk into my living room and, put my fingertip on a peg that's still sharp from the Lutheran farmers who raised the church. And so with a churchyard comes a graveyard. So it's been a huge part of my intellectual life. I mean, people have said to me, isn't it creepy or don't you feel afraid? I'm like, I really don't. I don't. I feel the weight of it, but it feels like ballast to me. It always reminds me that we have this one life on this planet, and then it's over. And so there are things to think about. There are people to love. There are ideas to embrace. There are causes to fight for. So
it's just part of life. Death is part
it
of
is.
Life,
It really is.
It's a little grounding, really, when you think about it.
Yeah.
Well, this is really exciting. You were just named Kentucky's Poet Laureate. It's an incredible honor. Congratulations.
Thank you.
What does it mean for you to step inside this role, and what are your hopes for this new title?
Well, I've been thinking about this because people are asking me about my vision. And I'm just racking my brain. What is my vision? I got to have a vision. What's my vision? And I realized that my vision is kind of the same as it's always been. I want to make writing accessible as a teacher to as many folks who want it. I think it's important to write. I think it's one of the things that makes us human. Our ability to use language and our ability to use our imaginations. Those are things that define human beings and make us different. Maybe we'll find out that animals are more sentient than we think, but that make us different from any other species on the planet. And I think it's it's something that's accessible to all of us. I mean, yes, all arts are important, but you can go on your back porch with a notebook and a pencil and write, and it's just a way of deepening your authentic experience. I think I want to help people find their writing lives and deepen their writing lives. And I want to go out and read. I want to amplify all the amazing work that Kentucky writers are doing. We come from a long heritage of very meaningful and very much loved literature. But the literature that's happening in Kentucky right now can rival any other state. And the thing that I love about the literature that's being made right now is it comes from many different kinds of people. Whereas in the past, that was not necessarily true, right? And so I love that we're hearing from lots of different voices. And the thing that connects us beyond our humanity is that we're Kentuckians, right? We're from the Commonwealth and from all its different landscapes and all its different voices and shapes and colors of people. So I love that, and I want to talk about that more out on the national stage if that's a possibility. But I also want to hold up the work of teachers. I'd love to go into high schools and read with the teachers who were the writers in those schools too, and with students too, and sort of connect with each other. Every good thing that's happened to me, I say this all the time, is helping through a connection with another writer. And I know how meaningful it's been to my life. I can't even imagine where I'd be right now if I hadn't discovered writing and learned from other people that it's okay. This is something that people actually do. And you can make a career of it, but you can also be a writer and be an accountant or a lawyer or a doctor or a social worker or own a business and still enrich your life by having a writing practice as well. So I guess I've always thought those things, or I've learned to think those things over the years, and now I am anxious and excited to go out and talk about all those things and make all those connections with as many people as I can. And I also think that art is not just good for human beings, it's really good for communities. And I want to sort of stress the fact that, the arts are good for us. They make us better people, but they also connect us to each other in ways that maybe other things can't.
So accessibility and connection are really a point of... Now you said vision, so that's all I can think of for the future.
Because everyone's, what's your vision for being the Poet Laureate? So.
Yeah, and I think you said it beautifully. There's a lot of great things ahead, it seems, as our Kentucky poet. I'm tripping over the words. Kentucky Poet Laureate. There we go. So how do you hope to help people, and it seems like through the plan that you're sort of telling me now, who feel like poetry isn't for them, discover a way into it?
Teaching, opening opening the doors to classrooms all over, where they're metaphorical doors or whatever. I think that connecting people with one another. I think there are more people out there writing poetry than one might think, because I run into people all the time, cashiers at the grocery store or whatever. I don't even know how it happens that we start talking about poetry, and they're like, "Oh, I write poems." I'm like, "Of course you do. Everyone does. A lot of people do anyway." So I just assume everyone loves poetry and could love poetry if they don't now. And I want to try to make that help them, see the written word in a new way that's nourishing for them.
And it comes in many forms, because I'm thinking about that myself. I'm like, I was a musician growing up, so I was writing lyrics. That's my poetry,
Right.
I love that so much. So once you get them to enter this world of poetry, if they didn't know they were already in it, I've heard you talk about writing about our differences and how they can actually strengthen our shared humanity. How have you seen that idea come into your life and your own work?
Well, for instance, I think I've written 6 books and other texts too. But, when I think about my work, it has deep Kentucky roots. And I think I have a kind of informal trilogy. So Seed Across Snow is kind of about my house. And moving into my house and learning from our neighbors that everyone thought our house was haunted. And then we were kind of terrorized by teenagers for about 10, 12 years because they thought the only people who would move into an old church would be devil worshippers. And so that's how my husband kind of became known as the Goat Man, from chasing kids off. Yes, because the Goat Man was down the road.
Right? Yeah,
that's right. That's right. And so I like to say that I'm married to the Goat Man, but no one really cares too much about Mrs. Goat Man in particular. So, and then next door is the graveyard, and so I have all these imagined lives, and Kentucky history comes into that too, because there are poems. I mean, the first grave was a grave of Alpha Beta Blankenbaker, 1854, same birth and death date, an infant. I don't know if it was a stillbirth. I'll never know, or maybe she lived for a little bit, and that's how we date the church, because there's no tax records from it. So, imagining the lives of the people in the graveyard, and I have imagined lives of people who might have been soldiers, and there are slave graves in the corner, and imagining, the lives of what those folks must have been like. So, and then the third book is the Goat-Footed Gods, and that's about the Poplick monster, my husband, and the trestle. And we can hear the train whistle blow, but, there have been 4 or 5 deaths that have happened there in the last few years of mainly kids who believe that if they go into the middle of the trestle, they can lure the Goat Man out and they'll be able to see him. And they don't understand, because the trestle looks pretty beat, actually, that it's still functioning, and they've been caught and not been able to make it off the trestle before the train has knocked them off. So, that obviously I'm not nearly as affected as their families and all, but it affects the community when things like that happen. And my husband had been on our screen porch, having a glass of rosé, and we hear sirens, and it's, I don't know, it's interesting for me to think about, with everything that's going on in the world right now, why do we have to make up monsters?
Right.
Well, there are plenty of monsters around that I can point to. I don't really need to put my focus on a made-up monster. So that's one of the things that the book deals with too. One of the ideas, why are we going out and looking for evil rather than fighting the evil around us that we can see so readily?
That's so true. Well, we'll be back with more after the break. You're on track with Louisville Public Media.
In honor of Military Appreciation Month, Verizon thought of a lot of different ways we could show our appreciation, like rolling out the red carpet, giving you your own personal marching band, or throwing a bumping shindig. At Verizon, we're doing all that in the form of special military offers. That's why, this month only, we're giving military and veteran families a $200 Verizon gift card and a phone on us, with a select trade-in and a new line on select unlimited plans. Think of it as our way of flying a squadron of jets overhead while launching fireworks. Now that's what we call a celebration, because we're proud to serve you. Visit your local Verizon store to learn more. $200 Verizon gift card requires smartphone purchase $799.99 or more with new line on eligible plan. Gift card sent within 8 weeks after receipt of claim. Phone offer requires $799.99 purchase with new smartphone line on Unlimited Ultimate or Postpaid Unlimited Plus. Minimum plan $80 a month with autopay plus taxes and fees for 36 months. Less $800 trade-in or promo credit applied over 36 months. 0% APR. Trade-in must be from Apple, Google, or Samsung. Trade-in and additional terms apply.
Welcome to It Takes Energy, presented by Energy Transfer, where we talk all things oil and natural gas. Oil and gas drive our economy, ensure our country's security, and open pathways to brighter futures. The U.S. produces 13 million barrels of crude oil every day, enough to fill 800 Olympic swimming pools. But what is that oil used for? The gas we put in our cars is just the beginning. Nearly 50% of each barrel is refined into gasoline. Another 34% is refined into fuels like diesel and jet fuel, and the rest is used to make more than 96% of our everyday essentials, like the tennis shoes you wear, the cell phone you rely on, and medicines that help save lives. Look around, and you'll see the essential role oil and gas plays in our modern lives. Our world needs oil and gas, and people rely on us to deliver it. To learn more, visit ittakes.energy.com.
Welcome back to On Track. I'm Aisha Jaffer, and as part of LPM's 75th anniversary, we're sharing the stories of people who've helped shape this city. Today, as part of our 75 and Change project, we're talking with award-winning poet, essayist, educator, and Kentucky's newly named Poet Laureate Kathleen Driskell. Kathleen, would you be open to sharing some of your poetry with us?
Sure, I'd love to. This is a poem called Walk in the Graveyard with My Mother, and I'm reading it because I was just talking about Alpha Beta Blankenbaker. Walk in the graveyard with my mother. On her visit, my 80-year-old mother wants to walk among the old headstones of the small graveyard next to her home. She wants to see if she remembers any of the names of those buried there, though no one next door is any of our kin, and her memory has been shot for years. Still, she leads her little graying dog through the grass, and I follow close by. I say, "Look here. This is the oldest grave," and stoop to pull the long grass and wild carrot, nearly obscuring the blunted stone of Alpha Beta Blankenbaker, infant, 1854, alone, abandoned here 100 or more years. I'm trying to recall, my mother says, which side of the family she comes from. On this earth, at this moment, it feels as if we, too, are the only ones alive who know that tiny Alpha Beta Blankenbaker was in our world, if only for a day. That she existed. She's from our side, I say.
That's really beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. So when someone reads your work, what do you hope stays with them?
Well, lots of things. I mean, it can be different things for different people. I think that I've heard that people are kind of drawn to my imagery. I'm a highly imageic poet. They're drawn to my syntax, the way I word things, the music in my poems. I try to create poems that have a beginning, middle, and end, right? So I want them to be unified. What I really want is for a reader to read something of mine and say, oh, that's worth going back and reading again. So I think that's what, the true definition of great literature is. It calls you back. It calls you back to find new things. And so I hope people will find new things. I work hard. I love the figurative. I love what's emerged and submerged in writing. Not my writing, but everyone's writing. And so I hope that those things that are submerged perhaps can come to the fore.
So what do you think it is about writing and the use of language that connects so deeply to our shared humanity in a way that feels different from other art forms?
I think it's, again, this idea that language is ours, at least the way that we understand it now and understand the way it works. And that language, it can be used cruelly, we know that, but also it can be used to sort of work things out. I don't know that we can answer things in poems. I don't know that you get a lot of answers from poems, but I think it helps us work through things and processes and all. But I also think there's something about linking language to the imagination And the imagination for me is one of the ways that I see the divine at work in our world, or the sacred at work in our world. The fact that we have imaginations is just, think of all the things that our imaginations have brought us in the world, from tall buildings to poems. So, I want people, I always wish as a teacher, because I've taught at all levels. I taught undergraduates for years. And I always was not very happy with the term critical thinking, because I think what we really mean is creative thinking. And I wonder how different our world would be if we had connected to or latched onto creative thinking rather than critical thinking in our schools and intellectual laboratories.
Maybe unlocking that imagination more with that terminology, really.
Right. Well, words matter, right?
They do. It's proof right here.
My work is done. That's my vision.
Done. Well, you pointed out something, though, about writers across Kentucky, that the stuff that's coming out of here could rival any other state. What do you think is fueling that creative energy right here and right now?
Opportunity. I think our writing communities, frankly, and maybe this is not very humble of me, but I think Spalding, the MFA program there, we were the first MFA program in the state, founded in 2001, and we have just sort of had little echoes, like little ripples of water moving out and out and out, where we're all connecting and giving each other opportunity, talking to each other now about what's available out there. Not crazy about the word network. It seems really kind of businessy to me, but really that's what it is. This kind of really this web of opportunity. We're kind of stuck there together, but we're looking outward too. So, and I think I have to say, Governor Beshear, I've never had a governor before who was so supportive of writers. He actually came to our Kentucky Writers' Day ceremony in the Rotunda. It's not he's done that before, and perhaps other governors have, but I don't really remember that, having been in this community for a while and attended quite a few. But, and also, being able to see Silas House as the first openly LGBTQ poet laureate, Crystal Wilkinson, the first Black woman, Frank X. Walker, all of whom have a connection to Spalding as well, graduates of ours. So, I'm grateful that Spalding has been a very hospitable, a very welcoming place for the literary arts, and that's not necessarily the case right now in terms of, state institutions and all. So,
what impact, speaking of those who are the writers out there and the storytellers, what impact can they have on their communities, especially here in Kentucky? And what advice would you give to writers who want to make that kind of difference with their writing?
I think to make a commitment to the writing practice. It's not necessary for all of us to go get MFAs. There's plenty of education out there for us. Writers are, we're thought to be kind of an isolated bunch because we work in our homes, but I've never really felt that way. And to write about what you love. The things that I've written about have changed over the years. I used to write a lot about my kids being little, and then they said, don't do that anymore as they got older. And, then I started writing about the natural world, and I started writing about my home. I don't think, what I've learned is that my work focuses on about a square mile around my house, and I can write about anything I want to. When I wrote the book Next Door to the Dead, I could write poems that were, anti-war, anti-bigotry. I could write about racism and how it's affected the world around me and affected me and others, obviously. Domestic violence comes into those poems. I don't know any of those people were, had terrible violent situations in their home, but I have an imagination. And I know these things exist. And so I can link those things together. So you don't have to travel far and wide and have gone to exotic places to have a really meaningful writing life. It can happen in your backyard.
There's whole worlds just waiting right
Absolutely.
there for you. I really love that. Now, As you've mentored so many writers through your work as a professor of creative writing at Spalding, as you're talking about, is there a piece of advice you often find yourself giving to your students that you'd be willing to share with us?
Well, they would tell you that I give them lots of advice. So I don't seem to suffer from, reluctance to give advice. Well, to read deeply. I mean, sometimes I think that my whole job, even at the graduate level, and the MFA is a terminal degree, right? So that's as high as you go as a creative writer. And I think my whole job is to teach people how to read very carefully. Not only the work of others, but their own work too. And to understand that there's a wonderful tension between the literal world and the figurative world. We might say something literally, but this is a culture that's full of subtext. And when I had undergraduates and I would teach them in composition or whatever, I would say, you may not realize that there's a subtext to what's going on around you, but that doesn't mean it doesn't exist. So
that's so true in language, in writing, and just in human interaction, too.
Right.
Well, before I let you go, what are ways our listeners can engage with your work?
My books are at Carmichael's. We love our independent bookstores. They're the lifeblood of local writers, and Carmichael's been a great partner, so they're there. You can buy them online. If you buy them on bookshop.org, a little bit of that money goes back to our scholarship fund at Spalding. I will be around. I'm going to be giving readings and going all over the Commonwealth, so I hope that I meet lots of folks who are interested in writing or interested either as writers or readers,
Kathleen, thank you so much for being here on Track.
Thank you.
Kathleen Driskell is the 2025-2026 Kentucky Poet Laureate. She currently serves as a professor of creative writing and the chair of the Naslin Mann Graduate School of Writing at Spalding University in Louisville. On Track is a production of Louisville Public Media. The On Track production team includes Michelle Tyreen Johnson, Alex Biscardi, and Laura Ellis. Our music is by Kojin Toshiro. If you're just tuning in and you want to hear the full show, you can find it now at LouisvilleOnTrack.org or in your favorite podcast app. And let's continue the conversation. Is there something you want to hear about? Something that matters to your Kentuckiana experience? Let us know by sending us a text or giving us a call at 502-814-TALK or send an email to ontrack@lpm.org. I'm Aisha Jaffer, and remember, being kind is free. That's the start of community. Until next time, you're on track with Louisville Public Media.
In honor of Military Appreciation Month, Verizon thought of a lot of different ways we could show our appreciation, like rolling out the red carpet, giving you your own personal marching band, or throwing a bumping shindig. At Verizon, we're doing all that in the form of special military offers. That's why, this month only, we're giving military and veteran families a $200 Verizon gift card and a phone on us with a select trade-in and a new line on select unlimited plans. Think of it as our way of flying a squadron of jets overhead while launching fireworks. Now that's what we call a celebration, because we're proud to serve you. Visit your local Verizon store to learn more. $200 Verizon gift card requires smartphone purchase $799.99 or more with new line on eligible plan. Gift card sent within 8 weeks after receipt of claim. Phone offer requires $799.99 purchase with new smartphone line on Unlimited Ultimate or Postpaid Unlimited Plus. Minimum plan $80 a month with autopay plus taxes and fees for 36 months. Less $800 trade-in or promo credit applied over 36 months. 0% APR. Trade-in must be from Apple, Google, or Samsung. Trade-in and additional terms apply.
Welcome to It Takes Energy, presented by Energy Transfer, where we talk all things oil and natural gas. Oil and gas drive our economy, ensure our country's security, and open pathways to brighter futures. The U.S. produces 13 million barrels of crude oil every day, enough to fill 800 Olympic swimming pools. But what is that oil used for? The gas we put in our cars is just the beginning. Nearly 50% of each barrel is refined into gasoline. Another 34% is refined into fuels like diesel and jet fuel, and the rest is used to make more than 96% of our everyday essentials, like the tennis shoes you wear, the cell phone you rely on, and medicines that help save lives. Look around, and you'll see the essential role oil and gas plays in our modern lives. Our world needs oil and gas, and people rely on us to deliver it. To learn more, visit ittakes.energy.com.